Hi, my name is Kate Ruff. I am the Executive Director at Common Approach to Impact Measurement, and it is my pleasure and honor to present Unpacking Common Approach to Impact Measurement, Session 1, which is the first in a new 3-session series that we are excited to present to you today. Common Approach takes our reconciliation work very seriously. We know that measures can be a form by which people in power control others. And we know that standards can be a means by which those in power control others. And impact measurement standards, if we are not careful, could be a way that ideas about what is performance and what is good in the world, grounded in a colonial worldview, could be an imposition on those from different worldviews. And thinking about that is the main way that we, and the most important way that we think about our roles in reconciliation. A less important thing we do, but still important, is a land acknowledgement at the start of every public presentation. We are a fully virtual organization. Common Approach does not have any building on land, but the humans at Common Approach do exist on Earth. And so what we do is we have the presenters speak about the land that they are on. So today I am presenting to you from Ottawa, the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin. And specifically, I'm very close to a place that I've learned from a local historian, is known as Mikiming, or the place where the oaks grow. The oaks didn't just happen to appear, they were cultivated for the valuable acorns that provide an important food source. I like to mention this part of the specific land that I'm on because it is grounded in an Algonquin understanding of place, but also because oak metaphors actually form a recurring metaphor in how we talk about what we do at Common Approach toward creating flexible, shareable data. So I like the connection between the oaks and the space where I am and the content we're talking about today, which is flexible, shareable impact measurement. Here is actually what we are going to talk about today. We are going to talk about our beginnings. And what I want you to learn from hearing about our beginnings is that we are grounded from community and remain community-driven. We are going to talk about what is the Common Approach to Impact Measurement. And from that, I also want you to learn what we are not. We are not magical and are not going to do all things to make impact measurement better and easier in all ways. We have a very specific thing we are going to do, and I want you to know about that. We are going to talk about the challenges that we are trying to solve, or the key challenge that we are trying to solve. Same key point. What exactly in what makes impact measurement hard is Common Approach here to fix. I will then tell you how our 4 standards work together to support that vision. And then we'll do a deep dive on one of our standards, the Common Foundations. We will end with some calls to action. That will end the recorded presentation. And those who are here on the call live, we will have a nice chat where you can ask your questions and share your comments. I look forward to hearing them. Our beginnings. We don't really know when we began. This slide begins in 2017. We could perhaps trace our beginnings to 2011, when a government task force in Canada, Ontario, asked the social innovation sector, impact investors, grant makers, charities, nonprofits, co-ops, B Corps, etc. What can we do to help so that you can have more impact? And one of the things that the sector said most loudly was fix impact measurement. They said impact measurement is a low-value time sink. Every new source of funding, every new funder, every new impact investor comes with a new set of metrics, a new form to fill in, a new template to fill out, a new portal to log into. We are drowning in measurement in ways that's not even useful to us, and we're not able to build our own measurement and data capacity. Based on that feedback, another task force was formed, and that task force created a report in 2017 that recommended a common approach to impact measurement and gave a 5-point action plan, which in 2018, an amazing group of partners won the right to implement. It was housed at Carleton University and led by me. And with my amazing marketing prowess and branding creativity, I named it by putting capital letters on the C, A, I, and M, and Common Approach to Impact Measurement went from being a sentence to the name of the organization. So then things happened in 2019, 2020, and we got some more funding to implement this action plan. By 2022, the Pathfinder pilot launched. This was the first time that we had enough built that someone could actually use it and test it. In 2013, we got the privilege of being chosen to support the Canada's Social Finance Fund with our Common Impact Data Standard. And as we come up on 2025, the Pathfinder pilot is wrapping up, and we're beginning to be able to share some user stories of our standards in action to get us closer to being able to invite you and many people to adopt what we have been creating. The key message I want you to get from this, though, is how much of what we are doing and why we are doing it came from the people we are trying to serve. When we founded, our transitional governance group that helped to create that nonprofit gave us two guiding principles that are really core to what we do. We come back to these often. They are part of our daily, probably more accurately, weekly conversations about how we do our work and why. The first is that Common Approach is and should always be shaped by all its users. The social purpose organizations that adopt the standard do and must have input and decision-making roles in the standard's ongoing evolution. Adhering to this principle sometimes means our work is slow, but I believe it is the right way and the only good way to move forward. So that is core to what we're doing. Second, which I already sort of alluded to in the land acknowledgement, is that we are committed to building impact measurement standards that place power with operating charities and social purpose businesses and those they serve. We know that impact measurement and standards can be vehicles of power, and that those can be used poorly for those that already have power to control those that do not. But we also know from research that well-designed measurement systems can be a way for those who are doing great work on the ground or those who are experiencing need to communicate up to those with wealth and control of money what is needed and where the priorities are. And that can be very empowering. So we are looking for that bottom-up empowerment through impact measurement. So what are we and what are we not? We are a magical reverse prism that takes a rainbow of metrics from all sorts of organization and turns it into a beam of insight for funders, investors, or those making sense of data. The Common Approach envisions a world where social purpose organizations, SPOs or SPOs, can measure what matters to them in a way that best captures the work that they are doing, and they can use that data to run even more impactful organizations. And it is really easy for them to share that data that is so core and important to them and so tied to their mission with those for whom they want to and need to report to. Also, we envision a world where funders and investors and other groups of organizations like networks are equipped to create portfolio-level analysis from the rainbow of data that organizations that they support send to them, so that they do not need to impose metrics or indicators or forms or templates on those they fund. They'll use the measures that those social purpose organizations have determined that are the best measures for the social purpose organization's work. That is what we are trying to achieve. We do this through 4 standards working together. You've heard about community-driven. Today we're talking about common foundations. The other standards, which are Common Form, Common Impact Data Standard, and Common Framework, we will talk about in subsequent sessions. Really driving home the point, what are we and are we are not? I just want to come to some common misconceptions and help to focus on the part that our organization is trying to solve in this ecosystem of a lot of people trying to make impact measurement better and easier. The first is we are not standardized indicators, but we are a way for networks, investors, and grant makers to make sense of diverse indicators. That's what the Common Framework does. We are not standardized tools and methods. We are a way for organizations, like social purpose organizations, to know if a method or tool meets the minimum criteria of impact measurement practice. And more realistically, most social purpose organizations we talk to don't just use one measurement or tool. They use a bricolage of things that they've kind of cobbled together because it kind of works for them. And so the common foundations help them assess, does this mismatch of stuff I've kind of invented and improvised, is it good enough? That's what the common foundations helps with. We are not a software. We are a way for softwares to exchange data. And that's really key because that common framework that we talked about at the top that makes sense of diverse metrics doesn't work that well when data is being shared with PDF and Word documents or Excels. It needs machine readable data, and the Common Impact Data Standard helps with that. And we are not a taxonomy of things. We are a way of integrating taxonomies together. What I want you to take from this slide is that common approach to impact measurement is not something that you would use instead of the work of these other great organizations. These are some of them, there are many. It is something you would use alongside this work to make the work you do with Social Value International, using the IMP, now hosted at Impact Frontiers, using IRIS, to make those metrics, to make that work more flexible and shareable. You add the common approach to make the system work better. We've collaborated with a bunch of these people, sometimes with recurring long, deep meetings like we did with the Impact Management Project before it was housed with Impact Frontiers. And some of these organizations, we, like you, just go to their website and build on the great work and the resources that are published online. But we've made a real intent, a conscious effort to not duplicate or supplant what the ecosystem is doing, but find ways to knit it together so that the work that comes out in each organization is more flexible and shareable. Let's talk about that in more detail. So this is a deep dive into the challenge we are trying to solve. Good impact measurement recommends that you start with a theory of change and collect data that is useful to you. You might be an impact investor. You might be a grant maker at a foundation. You might be in government. You might be an executive director of a charity. You might be the program manager of a program nested within a charity or a program manager that bridges multiple charities. In all cases, you, to do your impact measurement for the thing that you are in charge of, you should think about your thing's theory of change and collect data that is useful to you as a manager to make decisions about your thing so you can do more impact with your thing. That is the best recommendation for how to do good impact measurement. And it is really, really good recommendation. There is so much evidence that organizations that tightly align their measurement to their strategy are more innovative, more effective, and find measurement good value for the time and effort put into it. The top recommendation to do a good job with measurement and help your thing achieve impact is to closely align measurement and strategy. There is no problem there. The problem is who gets to be you. Impact measurement is a system-wide phenomenon, and all sorts of parties in this network have to use the same data. You've got report senders and report receivers. This report receiver might be an impact investor, and imagine these are those they've invested in. Who gets to be the one aligning the metrics to their strategy? Or this report receiver might be the executive director at a charity with many programs, and each program has its own theory of change or core metrics. And then the organization wants some. Who gets the metrics? Who gets to align their strategy, their metrics to their strategy? And I think it's really important to remember that a lot of these report receivers also become reporters themselves, maybe reporting to a board or another investor or to the public. The current problem is that in this system, someone ends up burdened by reporting. You can have a situation where the report receiver is really chill. They're like, you guys choose the metrics, just send me what you got. We see this, this is the current trend, I would say, in private foundations. They tend to be more receptive to just receiving the metrics from those they fund. And I often see this also in large charities where the programs decide the metric and the poor executive director is left as the poor foundation manager is, where the report senders, be they the programs or the investees or the grantees, each invent their own thing and send it. And these poor folks either spend hours banging their heads against a wall trying to build something from those metrics, or more likely, they don't. And then we lose accountability and they lose the ability to manage toward their theory of change. Or the flip side is this poor report receiver says, oh my gosh, I got to get my handle on things. Just log into my portal and fill out these metrics. Just track these simple KPI. Just fill out this Excel spreadsheet with these key metrics. So all of a sudden, this report receiver is now going to get very clean and tidy data, and they're going to have no trouble making sense of their impact measurement. But these poor report senders are logging into so many portals and so many templates and tracking so many metrics, they drown. That is the problem we're trying to solve. That while everybody should be the you in the system creates a tension where somebody feels the burden. But this magical reverse prism that Common Approach is building allows everyone to be you. It allows each social purpose organization or program to focus on measuring what is relevant to them and creates a way that the report receivers can turn that into a beam of insight. That is the piece we're trying to solve. That is what we mean by creating flexible, shareable data. How do we do it? 4 standards. Let's give a quick overview and we'll come back to some of them in future sessions. Today's focus is going to be common foundations. This allows social purpose organizations, or it directs social purpose organizations to measure what is useful to them. That is the key to effective impact measurement that is useful for effective management, that's going to bring beautiful things to our world. It also helps them assess if their impact measurement is good enough. The Common Impact Data Standard makes it easy for report senders to share impact data in a format that is useful for the report receivers. The Common Form does the same thing, but for descriptive data about the organizations. Who are you targeting? What fields do you operate? What is your address? Who's the contact information, etc. And then the Common Framework is that beam of light generator. It allows report receivers to group report sender metrics into meaningful insights. Like I said, we'll come back to some of those in future sessions. Today, we are going to talk about the common foundations. Starting with a solid foundation. This is the goal. It's about good enough impact measurement. It's right there in the name. Common foundations ensures a solid footing. It's about creating a common, widely understood standard for the basics of impact measurement. And this is essential before data is shared and aggregated through our magical reverse prism. We have simply documented what is widely known and widely understood by a whole bunch of other impact measurement, performance measurement, evaluators, etc. before us. We just wrote it down. We created it into these 5 essential practices. If you know these 5 practices by different names, if you know these 5 practices as maybe a 6th practice that makes a small division where we group things together, it's fine. Our point is not to insist this is the magic. It's to just write down what is widely accepted as the essentials and foundations of impact measurement practice. We call this describe your intended change, use indicators, collect useful information, gauge contribution and impact, communicate and use results. Sometimes I paraphrase this as know what you're trying to do. Figure out how you're going to know if you did it. Collect some data, look at it, and tell someone about it and do something about it. Like really essential stuff. As highlighted, these practices are common to many different tools and approaches and other standards that are out there. We are not trying to be precious about these practices. We're just trying to have a way to talk about them. The 5 essential practices articulate a minimum standard, and they are about being good enough rather than great. And I want to underscore this point too, that there are other consultants, trainers, standards out there that will help organizations take their impact measurement from meh to wow. Common Foundations really embraces the meh. We're here to say it's good enough for now. What is that minimum floor you need to reach before this data is going to be reasonably useful to share and add into that beam of light? Our initial goal was that 60% of social purpose organizations would find these practices easy. They would take our self-assessment and 60% would answer yes to all 21 questions to assess if they met the Common Foundations. It turns out from the study work we've done so far that about 28% of organizations can answer yes to all the questions. And we wondered, did we set the bar too high? In interviewing those who responded to our survey and who agreed to be contacted by researchers, we learned that actually it's more likely that social purpose organizations that are taking the survey are being too hard on themselves. The point I want to make for you today with this slide is that if you are going through the survey and you think sort of and yeah, but that's a yes in our world. That gets there. We want you to be like Amalisa from Shelldale Farms, who said, when I said yes, I meant not completely. I have a chart plan of my project, for example. I have indicators, but we also need to improve them. I can't say no because we have something, but it needs to improve. For our minimum standard, that's a yes. She's got it. Let's go through the practices bit by bit. The first practice is to describe your intended change. We find that most social purpose organizations are very strong on this practice. 70% answer yes to every single question, every single of the sub-practices for planning your intended change, describing your intended change. The next is to use indicators. These indicators are chosen to assess if the work has been carried out and what effect it has had. Again, we find most organizations answer yes to these questions. Where there is a slight drop, and we start to see some organizations saying no, is to 2.3, where we ask organizations to refine indicators so that they are time-specific and can be observed or measured. What we want to underscore at that good enough level is that if a social purpose organization has taken time to consider if the indicators they are using are useful and that they believe they are the best indicators for their capacity and resources right now, that is a yes to this question. Impact measurement that exceeds your time and money capacity is not going to be followed through. So we're asking people to do the best they can with their resources. Collect useful information. This is really about collecting some data and doing so in a way that is done in a routine and consistent way and ethically. We do notice that where there is the drop, many organizations collect data. This is not something that SPOs seem to struggle with, but we do find that where there is a drop in the meeting of the standard, it's that organizations don't do this in a routine and consistent way. In terms of that minimum standard, what we want to emphasize is that even simple processes are adequate. You just need to ensure that some data collection is happening and it's being done thoughtfully and consistently. Gauge your contribution. This is where most organizations, we see this like, yes, 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 I meet the practice, I meet the practice, I meet the practice, and then we have a little bit of a divot here with gauge their contribution. Organizations struggle with assembling and organizing their data to review the information. A lot of organizations say they don't analyze their data or even base their conclusions on reasonable assumptions. Some of this is because the data is hard and we're sympathetic to it, but some of it also is people holding themselves to too high a bar. So we want to highlight if an executive director is regularly summarizing data for the board, for example, that counts as a yes. And if you are thoughtful in your reporting, but how your data might be flawed, and just include that in your reports, that is sufficient to say yes to base conclusions on reasonable assumptions. The last step is really to communicate and use results. And the most important one here is use your impact data or revise it. In our Pathfinder pilot work, we've seen a really tight correlation between people who aren't using their data, and then when you push at it, it's just not quite the right data to collect. And this one metric right here, 5.1, seems to be the key thing that if organizations don't meet the common foundations, it's probably because it's not quite measuring the right thing in a way that's useful to the organization. And it's probably not going to generate good data as it goes into that magical reverse prism. So really focusing on innovating and adapting and tweaking to get the data useful. And there's some good key points here, again, on what does it mean to have a minimum standard. But here we're asking people to have reporting methods and communication styles tailored to different audiences. This could be as simple as a report to funders, a report to board, and something on social media, for example. All in all, the benefit of the common foundations are as follows. For the report senders, which we have generalized as social purpose organizations, the foundations serve as a baseline for good enough impact measurement. It gives social purpose organizations a solid footing to shape their own impact measurement practice. We have done research correlating social purpose organizations' belief that impact measurement is useful, non-burdensome, and helping them to improve, and their score on common foundations, and we see a strong correlation. So we have really reason to believe that a higher score on common foundation is better equipping social purpose organizations to, or those that score more highly on common foundations are also those who've sorted out their impact measurement to be something that is useful to them in a non-burdensome way. So that is a key benefit. It does seem to measure that core idea. For funders and investors, the foundations can help the funders assess whether their investees have good enough impact measurement practice. Confirming that investees have adopted the common foundations is a good indication that the data will be useful as it goes through that reverse prism. So what can you do today? I've talked a lot about this prism. We have some really compelling stories that it's working. It's good. And we have a bunch of bumpy implementations where it wasn't as lovely and dreamy as we would have liked. And we're working on those, we're documenting those, we're pivoting, and we've got hope. The key thing I want you to know from that statement is that right now, Common Approach wants to know who's implementing our standards and to be working alongside them so we can see the bumps, learn from the bumps, and fix the bumps. So we want to be alongside those who are implementing it to make it a smooth and dreamy experience. When it is a smooth ride, we will invite any and all people to sign on and sign up and get using it. That said, there are things you can do. The first is that we've mentioned that the common foundations are the starting point, and that organizations who have not must meet the common foundations to have a good confidence that the data they're sharing into this prism is going to be useful data. So we invite you to take the self-assessment. We invite you to start building your organization's impact measurement capacity to meet it, keeping in mind this very low good enough barrier. We are not asking you to be exemplars in impact measurement, although by all means, we encourage you to go in that direction. But exemplary impact measurement is not what's required. The minimum is required. So we invite you to take that assessment and start on that journey. If you are a funder, we invite you to start using this assessment to work with those you fund to help them on that journey. Next, we've very recently launched a supporters page, and we invite you to go to the link that will be in the chat or is here on the screen for you. If you like the idea of this pyramid, you're like, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to like it, but man, if it does work, I want it. If you are thinking that today, we'd love to have you put your logo on our supporters page. And this is a key part of us being community driven. When we have confidence that we are working toward a vision that the sector shares, they continue to understand it and like it and want it. That gives us the confidence, the mandate to keep spending our time and money on building it to make sure it works and it works the way we're promising. So we invite you to go and sign up. And just to be clear, you're saying you believe in the vision and you like the vision. We understand you do not have firsthand experience of implementing it. And the last thing you can do is continue to pay attention to what we're up to and learn in these sessions. So we invite you to join us for session 2. We will explore the value of empowering social purpose organizations to measure what matters most to them. We will talk about how shareable data can benefit social purpose organizations and those funding and investing in them. We will really deep dive into the Common Impact Data Standard and how it works, and then talk to you about what's involved in implementing the Common Impact Data Standard.